Hi, everyone. Welcome to the 2022 member meeting for the American Rose Society. I'm Diane Summers, president of the organization, and I'm really glad that you could all join us this evening. For the agenda tonight, what we'd like to do is cover some of 2022 as well as what we're looking at for 2023. And then we're very excited to announce the Gamble Fragrance Award as well as the gold medal. You know, typically we have members meetings at our conventions, but we haven't had a national convention this year. So we thought perhaps a webinar would be a great way to share some information. Now, early in the year, we actually came up with a whole host of objectives for the year based upon many, many things that we wanted to accomplish. And we've also been able to organize those around key objectives for the organization. So tonight, what I'd like to do is go through just a few of those and talk about what we've done again and what we're planning to do in 23. So we'd like to start with the membership benefits and educational opportunities, absolutely critical objective for our organization. I'm pleased to say we've had 16 webinars through September 30th this year with over 5,000 participants. It's absolutely fantastic. And I want to thank Gary Chin, who kind of helped us along and joined with Kim and John in helping us host these activities. It takes a lot of work behind the scenes, so we're really happy to have a volunteer like Gary. We also were able to do our first hybrid horticulture judging school, and we had over 800 participants over the 4 Saturdays in August. We call it a hybrid because part of it is virtual. The lecture series for the judges was virtual, but then we had an in-person, the testing, as well as the practical test that takes place when you become a judge. So that's why it's called a hybrid. And really want to thank Linda Kimmel, our Northeast Regional Director, who was very proactive and did a lot to pull this together in a relatively short period of time. And to Mark Nolan, thank you. He was the Hort Judging Chair at their district convention that actually organized the practical for the event. You know, we learned a lot from that, and we will continue to host virtual hybrid judging schools in the future. We'll talk about that in a little bit. One of the great programs I think we had this year was on social media for local rose societies. And Emily Hammond, as well as Elena Williams, our chair of our National Social Media Committee, put this on for our local rose societies and shared ideas on how to set up Facebook and Instagram accounts and how to use these types of social media to bring in new members and grow visibility of their organization. We received so many thank yous from people across the country, and hopefully we've really been able to help our local rose societies in these ways. Also, we just recently, and it might be just today, have launched the 2022 Horizon Roses. In the past few years, I'm sure you all know that this was done through Bob Martin, and I really want to thank Suzanne Horn for stepping up and coming up with somewhat of a new format. And that Horizon Roses is now available for purchase on Amazon as both a download and a paperback. You can also purchase the download on the ARS store, and wink, wink, we get a little more revenue when we do it ourselves. So if you're interested in the download, please go to the ARS store. Now, some of you may not be familiar with Horizon Roses. This is a publication that's been done for many, many years, and it takes feedback from exhibitors from across the country on the newest roses. And it gives their honest opinion if it's a good rose for exhibiting. And if you think that if you're not exhibiting, that it's not a worthy publication, you might be really missing some keen insight. You know, exhibitors can be kind of finicky. They want those roses that grow just perfect. They want them to be disease resistant, for example, to have a lot of bloom. Those are things we all want in our gardens. And so this is really a good resource for you for, again, looking at those newest roses that have been introduced. So I strongly recommend that you purchase the download. And I also want to truly thank the Local Rose Society Advisory Committee that was launched just about a year ago. This was a brand new committee, and it's comprised of former and current Local Rose Society presidents across the country. And the objective of this committee is to help local rose societies. And who better to do that than people that have been, in a leadership role in our local rose societies. So it's great to have this forum and to bring everybody together. It's hard starting a new committee. You don't have, all those things, all those plans already laid out. You got to create this all from scratch, and they've just really done a fantastic job in 1 year. I want to thank Bill Dorn, who has chaired this committee, and actually the entire local Rose Society Advisory Committee. We all want a new name, by the way, for that committee. Kind of long as it is, but really they've just put together just a lot of fantastic material. And I know you're all wondering then, well, how do we get that, Diane? And you will get that through the local Rose Society Advisory Committee. They have invited all local Rose Society presidents to a meeting on December 10th. And I believe they're going to specifically talk about programs for 2023. One of the toughest things we all have to do as local rose societies is create those programs, right? We want them to be inviting and interesting for our members. And so they're going to give you a toolbox on how to do that, and a lot of great examples of programs that have been done in the past. So please be sure to register to attend that. I know that you'll get a lot out of it. Some things that we are planning for 2023 related to membership benefits and educational opportunities. We have already on the calendar scheduled our 4th virtual CR school for February 4th and 11th. So we're planning to do it in 2 Saturdays instead of 4. Obviously, there'll be longer periods of time in each of those Saturdays. And I want to thank Mike and Anita Eckley for all their efforts in putting on these schools. They really have been successful. I know that everyone enjoys interacting with people across the country. We can all learn so much more than just when we expand that, I guess, and have that opportunity to hear different people. So thank you very much. We are also in February going to have a program on how to judge photography. And Pam Powers, our National Photography Chair, is leading this effort, and I'm sure it will be well received by our judges, as well as those that enjoy photography and entering our photography contest. So here's how you really start to understand how those judges are judging those photos. We are planning for hybrid arrangement and Hort judging schools next year. Those are in the early planning phases. One topic that has been going through a lot of discussion at the board level is on the rotation of some of our national challenge classes. The thought has been that with only one or no national conventions every year, we're all missing out on that opportunity to participate in a national challenge class exhibit. And so what the board has come to conclusion just last week, so this is hot off the press, is that we will have a rotation schedule for next year where every district will have the opportunity for a particular national challenge class for their district. Okay, and then every year thereafter, it's going to rotate, and that's both for horticulture as well as arranging. So you want to reach out to your district director to hear more about that. And we still have a little bit of infrastructure to put in place there, but I think that's going to really help our exhibitors across the country to have a little bit more fun and a little bit more challenge. Now, when it comes to national conventions, our national conventions will have they will have the opportunity to include whatever classes from a challenge class perspective they want. Okay, so what that means, of course, is some years we'll have maybe 2 of the same national challenge class happening, one in the district and one at the national level. Next on the horizon for 23 is that we're going to start videos. We think we're getting pretty good at this webinar thing. right, and showing PowerPoint presentations, but where we want to go next are video clips. We're hearing that's how people are learning these days. It's not by sitting through an hour webinar. It might be a 10, 15-minute video all about how to prune a rose bush. And so we're starting to work on that now. And the social media committee kicked off a bit of a training session last week. It was just great last Saturday. And thank you again to Emily and to Elena for doing that for us. I wanted to spend just a couple minutes on ARS member benefits. I know we always think about our magazine, obviously, is the top benefit that we all receive. But there are other benefits as well, and some of those can really help your pocketbook. So for example, are you aware that you actually do get discounts at various nurseries that are partners with the American Rose Society? And those can go from 10 to 20% of your purchase. Now, right now you have to contact the nursery, so you can't do your online order, so to speak, and make that happen. And we're going to work on how to make that work a little bit better for us in 23. But if you spent $100 on roses at these particular nurseries, you could get up as $20 of a refund or a credit, right? So there's some dollars to be had here, and I want to make sure that I call that out to all of you, especially as we start to add benefits, right? Our reciprocal garden program, over 350 gardens across the country that you can get in with a lower or no admission charge, or maybe it's free parking, or maybe it's those special discounts in the gift shop by showing your membership card. And as an example, our local Rose Society in Milwaukee, we went down to the Chicago Botanical Gardens this year. There's a $20 entry fee, and it was waived for all of us because we were members of the American Rose Society. So don't forget about that program, not only in your local area, but if you happen to be traveling and you want to, go to some other gardens, right? So let's move on and let's talk about technology. So technology is truly an opportunity for us to improve our efficiencies in the office and enhance some member experiences. And obviously we know that all started in 2020 when we started to reach out and do webinars together. In 22, we actually moved our board meetings to virtual meetings where possible. And we've had 5 meetings this year instead of the typical 2. In the past, we would have 2 meetings. They would be at our national conventions. And if we didn't have a convention, then we'd all find a logical place to gather and meet. But now we meet for shorter periods of time, and we're doing it virtually. There's a lot going on with the American Rose Society, and it's so important that we get the feedback and the guidance from our board, and this enables us to do that. And at the same time, it does reduce costs for travel for our board members. I don't see that practice ever changing at this point. We need to leverage virtual meetings, and we need to get better at how we do them, frankly. We also completed a membership software upgrade this year, somewhat invisible to most of you at this point, although I know some of you have logged in now to the new platform. And I would encourage all of you to do that if you haven't. You can see on the right-hand side, once you do that, you can update your profile by yourself. So if you change your email address or your phone number, or you move, you can go in online and you can change all of that activity, for example. And as we continue to grow benefits in future years, we're going to be pushing some of those benefits through this portal because we want to make sure that our members get those benefits, right? And so you'll want to make sure that you start to log in and get that practice down. Now, when you do log in the first time, you're going to have to change your password. And then you have to wait for us in the background to kind of link the two together, your file with your new login, okay? So that'll take a couple days, so don't do it right away and assume it'll all be updated, but it will be there, like 3-4 days later. So, but I would suggest that you do that if you haven't done that already. And it's something that I know a lot of people are very interested in is we kicked off actually in June the website redesign project. I know that there's struggles from a lot of people, including myself, on where do you go to find something on the website. So we have a committee. It is chaired by John Riley, our district director from the Central District, and Gary Chin is on that committee, and Emily Hammond is on that committee. We could actually use a few more people if you have a background, professional background in website design, that kind of technology. Please reach out to me because we could actually use a few extra people on that committee. You can see we're still targeting that we'll finish it next August. This is going to be a very systematic approach that we're taking to understand all the information that's out there today, all the paths through all of the different frames of the website. And then we're talking to our stakeholders, which is a lot of our committee chairs, like our CR committee chair and our judging committee chairs, to find out what information would be helpful from their perspective to be on this website. And then we'll also reach out to members to find out, what are you looking for on the website? So we're trying to understand the needs of everyone as we redesign the website. But I think when we get done, it'll be a great project, but it will never be done because websites need to always be in revision because life is changing, and we'll always be adding new tools and opportunities to it, right? That'll be the final part of that project, is how do we keep it moving forward and not stale. In 23, we also plan on digitizing the American Rose magazine, as well as Award of Merit articles. This way, members will have the opportunity to not only view their magazine in hard copy, but they can also view it digitally. We are way behind some other organizations in providing this benefit, and we are going to catch up relatively soon here. And we'll also continue to build out our video programming through these short video clips. We are going to use some professional expertise on the back end after we do them to make sure that they are of good quality that represents what we want the American Rose Society to look like. And of course, we need to talk about the America's Rose Garden, as the Great Garden Restoration Project is now complete. And we celebrated that back in May in the gardens, and it just looked absolutely stunning. That project was completed in 5 years as it was planned, and it was paid for by donations and our Maintenance Endowment Trust contributions. So I want to thank all of you who've contributed to this phenomenal garden, and I want to thank Marilyn Wellen for her leadership on this project. This year, we've also added 2 garden, we call them nurseries, which are supporting movement of the Belovich Rambler collection onto the gardens. And I want to thank Claude and Pam Graves and the Heritage Rose Foundation, who actually funded the cost of those nurseries. And you might be surprised to hear, but the state of Louisiana has given the American Rose Society $137,000 in support for Christmas lights for the garden and marketing initiatives. So we really thank the state of Louisiana for their support. And one of the signs you see on the left-hand side there where it says "See What's Blooming," that is actually an electronic billboard that is now being shown in that part of the state. And so that's really, really cool. The grants, of course, have very specific requirements, and they can only be used for certain things. 100,000 of that goes for the lights for Christmas in Roseland. Last year, we had over 500,000 lights at Christmas in Roseland, and now we will have many, many, many more. So it'll be really exciting to see Christmas in Roseland this year. And we also want to welcome Brandy Boudreau. Brandy is our new event and volunteer director. Her compensation is paid by the Maintenance Endowment Trust, which is now helping us to generate more revenue from our updated garden. One of the questions that we received when we were having registration and I've actually received this question for many, many years as I was treasurer of the organization, is, why do we spend so much money on this garden? And maybe we should focus it more on the infrastructure of our organization. So I put together a little bit of a soundbite for you on that. In 2022, 38% of our gross revenue came from the American Rose Center. That doesn't include the $137,000 of grants. That's just activities in the garden, in our education building that we rent out for events, other events we might have on the grounds. We have an Easter egg hunt in the springtime. If we look at the 21 net income, there was $135,000 of net income coming from the gardens. And in 22, we're pretty much right on budget that it'll be $156,000 of income. If you've ever looked at the income statement of the American Rose Society, it's basically a zero-sum game. It's kind of like netting to zero. We get money in, and then that's what we spend. And so the fact that this garden is bringing in net income is meaning that that's covering and paying for some of the benefits for the American Rose Center. In fact, when you look at inflation over the last 10, 12 years, that's been covered by the gardens and single one-time contributions. So the garden should be here to stay. We expect the gardens to continue to grow revenue, and that's important for all of us. Without these gardens, we'd probably have to increase membership dues, like $20 a person, to cover inflation over the last 10 years. Hopefully that makes sense, but I can certainly spend more time on that at a later time if need be. Other questions that were asked through the registration process that weren't covered in this presentation so far. There was a question about ideas for improving the diversity of members in our local Rose Society. Again, I think our local Rose Society Advisory Committee is going to help us quite a bit there. They have a whole segment on membership and how do we reach out to find new members that enjoy roses and that want to participate in our hobby. Will ARS continue to provide information about OGRs and heritage roses? Well, absolutely. That's one facet of our hobby, right? We aren't all as immersed into all of the different facets, but heritage roses, preserving the roses is certainly important in our mission. And in fact, the fourth circle in the IRC garden consists of OGRs. And this Saturday, all members have been invited to a webinar hosted by the Heritage Rose Foundation. So that might be something that you're interested in attending. There'll also be programs on heritage roses at the convention next year at Shreveport. And finally, has the rose exhibition outlived its relevance? I don't think so. However, like anything that we do in the Rose Society, anything any business does, we have to continue to make sure that we remain relevant. And so we may need to modify our rose shows, our rose exhibitions, to make sure they're still meeting the needs of our members from an enjoyment perspective, from the community, from an education perspective. And that's no different than any of the other facets of our wonderful hobby that we enjoy, be it photography or arrangements or garden tours or whatever it is, right? Want to make sure I mention the 2023 convention, May 5th through 7th at Shreveport. I hope you will all come. This is a very special convention. We have people chairing it from all over the country that have experience in putting on national conventions. And the agenda is coming together with really, really well. We have a hybridizers panel going on. We have a heritage rose auction. We've got a dinner dance, a homecoming dance on the gardens. Everyone will be able to participate in the International Rose Trial judging. So lots of good things happening. You'll want to make sure that you come. And it's time for roses at this convention. I want to really thank Ruth Tiffany and Carrie Bergs for their leadership as co-chairs. It's really a challenge, again, because we have people all over the country that are working on this. And a special thank you to the 12 districts, the 2 local rose societies, and our 2 board members that contributed over $10,000 in seed money to help us move this forward. So seed money is money that we use until we start to get registration money, because we need to have some cash for down payments, etc. All that money goes back to these individuals, and you've been also very generous to share that. So thank you very much. What we'd like to do now is to move through some of our special awards for this evening, which include the Gamble Award and then the gold medal. So just give us a moment here as we transition this. We've actually pre-recorded these, and so we need to kind of move forward with moving this over to Kim and John so they can run the video. The James Alexander Gamble Fragrance Award is given to outstanding new, very fragrant roses. The selection is made by the ARS Prizes and Award Committee for the rose considered the most fragrant in municipal and private gardens throughout the United States over a 5-year period. The rose must be registered and it must have a rating at least 7.5 in the handbook for selecting roses. The new rose must have received its registration within 5 years, but not within 15 years, but not less than 5 years after it's been registered. And it is not mandatory that a rose be selected annually for this award. In fact, awards are only to be made when there is a very outstanding fragrant variety. And it is typically awarded to the hybridizer of the named rose at our fall annual meeting of the American Rose Society. The first Gamble Award was in 1961, and it was given to Crimson Glory, a beautiful Cortis rose. This, in fact, is only the 25th time since then that the ARS has recognized a rose for its fragrance. It is my pleasure to announce the 2022 James Alexander Gamble Fragrance Award to Cortis for a rose that many of us grow in our own gardens, the hybrid tea Beverly. Joining us from Germany to accept this award and to share more details regarding the success of Beverly around the world is Alex Cortis, co-owner and CEO of the Cortis Rose Garden Program, and Thomas Prohl, head of the Garden Rose Breeding Program at Cortis. I'm so grateful that they could both join us today to tell us more about Beverly.
Thanks very much, Diane. It's a really great honor receiving this award for Beverly, and as the hybridizer of the variety, I can just say it has accompanied me over many years already in here in the company. And I have actually I just took some slides out of a presentation on fragrant roses that I'm doing quite often to rosarians, to rose societies, and because there was a part about Beverly in anyway, so it wasn't much work to prepare it. And I would like to give you a brief introduction about the background of that variety.
That's great.
So you see the screen now?
Yes.
You see the PowerPoint? Okay. Yeah, so let's start. You can see already on that slide that Beverly is not like for many roses around the world. Beverly is not the only name. This variety is known all around the world. So another of those names is Perfume Passion, and Perfume Passion is also, I think, a pretty good name for that rose. And here we see we have a view into the web shop of Ludwig's Roses in South Africa, because our agent Ludwig Taschner, he was the one giving the name Perfume Passion to this rose, And lots of rosarians in South Africa know it under that name. But not only in South Africa, but also in Australia, because our Australian agency, Treloar Roses, also pretty well known by many rosarians, I'm sure, adapted the name Perfume Passion for this rose, and it's also doing very well over in Australia. And Diane, we are about to meet soon in person in at the Adelaide Convention, the World Convention. I'm pretty sure we will find Beverly or Perfume Passion over there as well. And another name that was given to this rose is actually Pink Perfection. And in the UK, it was introduced by Mattox Roses under the brand of Mattox Roses. And here we see just one distributor, Counts of Colchester, a well-known rose nursery, and they grow it and offer it as Pink Perfection. And the last name is in France. Also in France, the rose has been renamed by our local agency, Globe Plantaire, and people know it over there as Sophie Davant. And Sophie Davant is an pretty well-known actress in France. So you can see same rose, but known under quite some different names over the years. And actually, I mentioned that before, Beverly has always been a variety being, I would say, hungry for awards. It got so many over the years that's really, even for a breeder, quite impressive. And please don't misunderstand that as just showing off. Because for a breeder, it's always very important. Results in competitions, in contests, are kind of confirm our work. So we are not so much behind the trophies, but it's always great to learn if a variety works at all different climates and different locations. And here we have the list that is quite impressive, I guess. It started with a fragrance award in Baden-Baden in Germany, was followed by a fragrance award in Belfast, a fragrance award in Nantes. And Nantes is a fragrance-only competition, so winning there is really something. The Hague, it got a fragrance award in 2011, in Glasgow in 2012, La Tacita, Italy in 2010. And one more time, Echigo Hillside in Japan is a fragrance-only competition, so silver medal is quite something there. And I guess quite some rosarians in the US might remember back in 2013, Beverly got 2 awards in the Biltmore trials, Best Hybrid Tea and Most Fragrant Rose. But that's not all. There is a reason that our agency, Treloar Roses, put Beverly or Perfume Passion on the front page of their catalog, because it took home quite a bunch of awards in the National Rose Trials of Australia in Adelaide in 2012. And that was a gold medal, but it was also the most fragrant rose. The award is donated by the governor of Gifu from Japan. The award for the best hybrid tea is donated by the Hamilton Gardens in New Zealand. And the main award for the best rose in trial went also to Beverly. But as I said, it's she's hungry. She's hungry for awards. And there's another award that is probably one of the most prestigious in here with us in Europe, and that's the Golden Rose of the Hague. And that was given to Beverly in 2013. And so that was for us also. I still can remember that I got the award back then. You can see the photo, and it was pretty sad that Willem Cordes couldn't join us during that convention because of his health problems already back then. But I still like to think back to that receiving that prestigious award in 2013. And the last part of this short presentation, I would like to introduce you to Claudia Walder. Claudia Walder is a professional perfumer. Actually, she calls herself a nature perfumer because she's only working with natural ingredients. And we are cooperating with Claudia since, I guess it must be over 10 years now. And she is helping us with her professional expertise to describe the roses properly. And so for Beverly, of course, she did one of her perfume portraits as well. And this is what a professional perfumer says about this rose. The scent is intense, yet fresh. The top notes of citrus are present even when the bud is just opening. When the flower is fully open, the wonderful hard notes of fresh lychee and white peach predominate, with the fragrances of pear and plum also being present. The earthy base notes of patchouli and the fresh myrtle are faint but complete the experience. On the left hand, you can see one of those, we call it the circle of fragrance. This is also what Claudia creates for us. And those of you, of course, you are familiar with how perfume is described. You find those top notes and hard notes and base notes. That's typically with the roses as well. Yeah, that's what I wanted to tell you about Beverly, and it's really, as I said, a rose as a company accompanying me over the years. And there's one last anecdote I would like to tell you about. It was actually, you probably know that a variety, it starts all with a seedling and then you build it up step by step. And I can remember on the trial field when that rose, of course, wasn't called Beverly then, we had about 30 plants. And pretty unusual for Germany, we had a strong summer storm. It must have always already something like it being a small tornado, and it was pretty dramatic. And we lost a lot of plants that broke out of the budding union. And I remember very well still, out of that 30 plants, I think 26 or 27 broke, and only 3 were left. And considering that now we have we all of us and you who like that rose and the whole world and all the variants, we were very close to losing this variety. But luckily that 3 plants survived, and we built it up further and then finally introduced the variety in 2007. Thank you very much.
What a great story, and I'm so glad that you were able to capture it, and it still survived after the storm. And you're right, it would be such a shame, right, if we weren't able to enjoy such a beautiful rose. I want to thank you again and congratulate you on this very special award for a very special rose. Fragrance is certainly one of those key characteristics that people are looking for when they select a rose. And I expect that we'll be seeing a lot more Beverly roses in our gardens next spring. So thank you so much for creating this wonderful rose. Well, that was great, and it was really quite fun doing that video with Thomas and Alex in Germany. One of the funny things that happened is we were going through the video, and obviously you have to coordinate all these webinar things. But as we were looking at their screen, everything was in German, and so we couldn't figure out where things were compared to where they were in ours, because neither John nor I understood German. So that was really kind of fun. So now we're going to move forward with the gold medal. Kim? The American Rose Society recognizes sustained lifetime service at the national, the district, and the local levels by awarding our highest honor, the American Rose Society Gold Honor Medal. Candidates nominated by members of our prizes and award committee must meet exceptional high standards by clear and definitive demonstration of volunteer service at the highest level performed over a long period of time. The first gold medal was awarded in 1933, and this year represents the 60th gold medal that the American Rose Society is awarding. I'd like to read for you some comments from the nominating papers for this individual. From the moment this individual joined the American Rose Society over 30 years ago, they have been a pillar of strength volunteering service at the local level, the district, and the American Rose Society. Along this journey, they continue to provide sustained and reliable horticulture advice on growing roses. Fiercely committed to serving all American Rose Society members with the best information on roses, this individual quickly became a prominent member, completely devoted to promoting the American Rose Society. Some of those activities and levels of service include Vice President and President of the Nashville Rose Society, Editor of the Nashville Rose Leaf, Tenarchy District Director, and Editor of the District Tenarchy Catnips, Horticulture Judge, Consulting Rosarian, Member of the American Rose Society Board of Directors, National Convention and Show Organizer, multiple local and district educational events and exhibitor workshops, speaking at meetings all over the country. This individual is also a hybridizer, and 2 of their roses have been awarded the ARS Award of Excellence, and 4 of their roses have been nominated or voted onto the ARS Miniature Hall of Fame. It is my distinct honor to present the 2022 gold medal to Mr. Robbie Tucker.
Well, thank you, Diane. I really do appreciate it. Getting my sweet Marcia in here where everybody, she didn't want to get on the camera, but I said she had to get in here so everybody could see her that hasn't seen her in a while. I really want to just say a few words, and if I can quit being choked up here and say that I want to thank the committee for nominating me and all the members of the American Rose Society for this great honor. Although I've known about it for several weeks now, I am still greatly moved by this award. It was totally unexpected, and I'm very honored to receive it. My love affair with roses started about, like you said, 30, but for me, 32 years ago, back in 1990. Marcia and I lived in the Houston area on the north side of town, and the housing market was very depressed, and we bought a home that had been vacant for several years so we could hopefully get a good buy on it, which we think we did, but that's neither here nor there. And most of the shrubs in the home were dead from lack of any kind of care. But stuck in there somewhere in those beds were a couple of spindly red roses with 0 leaves but blooms on them in spite of themselves. And I took one smell of them and fell in love. So being a self-proclaimed expert at that time, I did the right thing, joke warning, and dug them up and moved them to a shady spot where I was sure that they would thrive, only to find out that that was a bad move. So if you would think back to those times in the early 1990s, there was no internet. I mean, it existed, but not for common man. It really didn't even come available till 1993. And then none of us would have known how to use it. If you did, you were exceptional. So I went to the Yellow Pages and tried to find some kind of resource on growing roses and bought all the books I could find in the library. And one day out of nowhere, a gentleman from the Houston Rose Society, Rob Mock, just stopped his car. He had seen that I had planted a few roses in my yard, and he wanted to introduce himself and tell me about the Houston Rose Society. And I told him I was looking for someone to give me help, and he gave me the phone number to Patsy Williams. And Patsy, I'll never forget my first phone call. I was very anxious to call her, and I had so many questions to ask, as you know, all the newbies do. And I picked up the phone and I called her number, and I could hear all kinds of dishes and water banging in the background. And I'm imagining, without the ability to see her like we can now, sitting there with the phone stuck under her neck, and she says, I'll take all the time you need, but I'm doing the dishes. As long as you don't mind me doing the dishes while we talk, I'll help you. And so we probably talked 35 or 40 minutes. She was so generous with her time, and she uh, invited us to come to the Houston Rose Society, of course, which we did. And Marcia and I both, we just loved going up to where the society is held there at the gardens, and seeing the gardens, and learning all that we could about roses and rose people. So from there, with my new guru's help, we planted about 50 roses the next spring. And all this talk started about the first, the big rose show of the season, not the first one for Houston, but the first one for us. And so we were very excited. I remember we collected our pitiful uh, pot of roses and headed off to the rose show with our two young kids, sitting there with us. Kirsten, I believe, was 6 years old at the time, and Tyson might have been 10, or Marcia's shaking her head and saying she was 4. She was little and didn't have any business being there, but we didn't know that until we showed up. And it was just blew us away, because we walked into the room where all the exhibitors were preparing, and the whole group from Beaumont was there. For you people that are old enough to remember that gang, that is so powerful in their row showing capabilities. And there were like 4 long tables that had more of the longest stem, most beautiful colored roses I'd ever seen in my life. And we had our little pitiful roses about this tall. I think one of my favorites at the time was Camelot, if that tells you how pathetic we were. And we didn't know what to do. So rose people, being who they are and how they treat each other, if those of you that remember Slats Wathan, bless his heart, even though he probably had 40 long stem hybrid tea roses that he needed to get groomed and prepared, he stopped everything he was doing and came over to help us get our entries made. And so if you can imagine that, here he is breaking away from all things he needs to do. Kirsten and Tyson are chasing each other and getting in trouble with Marcia and I, and running underneath the tables between Slats's legs. And he's just laughing about it, because it's the best thing that ever happened as far as he's concerned. So that was my first experience with the Rose Show, and how generous and kind and great Rose people are. So as my interest grew, of course, I met Mary Fulgham. She was a member of the Houston Rose Society too. And Mary had hybridized her first rose, which was Steve Silverthorne. And I just thought that was the most amazing thing ever, that someone could create a rose. I just couldn't get over it. I was just so amazed. And Mary took so much time with me to explain in great detail how she did it, and was more than willing to share the process. And so I knew that that was something that I was going to want to do someday. Well, we hadn't been in Houston long, and we went to Nashville very unwillingly, because my company had decided that's where we were going to live. And we didn't know anything about Nashville and didn't want to go there. Well, obviously, as much as we love Houston, Nashville turned out to be a wonderful place to grow roses. As soon as we moved there, we planted a 600-foot long picket fence. We had over 400 roses planted in raised beds, did it all the right way, joined the Nashville Rose Society, and really got heavily, heavily into roses, as many of you that are on this call have done and know exactly what I'm talking about. And I know Marcia sitting here with me will remember that we had a big ice storm very soon after we had moved there in the winter. And electricity was out in our house, and they were saying it was going to be out for several days. And there was a district winter meeting at Jackson Tennessee, uh, uh, over with Whit Wells and group. And we didn't know any of the people there. We'd never been to a district, winter meeting, but we were freezing in our house. And so we called and got somebody there and said, "Are you guys going to be still having the event?" And they said, "Oh, yes, we are. Please come." So we got out on the interstate. There were trees laying down on the pavement everywhere. And in about 2.5 hours, we're in Jackson. And I remember we go in there, and Whit Wells has barbecue on the house for everybody. And it was the most welcoming, wonderful people that I'd ever been involved with in any kind of hobby. The next thing I knew, I was getting invited to Jeannie and Frank Tave's room, for those of you that remember them. And it was, the purpose of the meeting was to sit down and get education about how to show roses and make queen machines. And so there were at least 20 people huddled up in a little hotel room, all sitting on the floor, all of us newbies. We couldn't wait to hear what the exhibitors had to tell us so that we might someday emulate them. I also, one last little story here. I remember that wanting to continue on what Mary had taught me, we built a little indoor greenhouse in our walk-in attic. And still today, Marcia and I, we wonder why the police didn't come and arrest us because of our high electricity usage and the lights that were shining out of the soffits of our house, because it was suggesting we might have been growing something else. But in that little walk-in attic greenhouse is where my first hybridized rose, Miss Flippins, was born. And the rest is history. So in summary, I'm going to say that those of you that know me, that know that I could go on talking for hours about all the little different things and fun that I've had with so many people at so many rose societies and rose events, both local, district, national, uh, every kind of event for people that wanted to show roses, that wanted to hybridize roses. The thing that I've gotten all out of all of that is that even more than the love of roses, it's the people that make the difference. Rose people are the best people in the world, and I'm getting choked up. I'm so honored to accept this award, and I will just say that uh, I'm thankful to everybody in all those societies that were part of my Rose life. And I'm especially thankful to Joan and Logan Schillinglaw, who were our partners in Rosemania for these 20 plus years. Hopefully, we helped a few folks along the way. I am grateful for this honor, and I thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Robbie. You probably don't remember the first time you met me, but I was a newbie and I was at a national convention in the Twin Cities. And I brought just a handful of roses, and I took Miniature King with a rose called Snow Bride. And I couldn't believe I lost to some guy with a rose named Miss Flippins. So that's where I met you.
Well, I'm sorry. Not.
But I've enjoyed, of course, growing many of your roses. And of course, I'm a customer of Rosemania. So I thank you very much because you have provided those kinds of, products and services that all of us rose people need. So it is really just wonderful to give you this outstanding award. It is well deserved. And we thank you very much. And we hope to see you next spring at our national convention in Shreveport, Louisiana.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I guess this concludes our award presentation. Okay, thank you very much. That was really a lot of fun meeting with Robbie. And so now we are getting pretty good at moving these screens around, Kim. So you did a great job with that. Let's see if I can finish this off. There we go. I really want to say thank you. Thank you to all of you who are here tonight. Thank you for those that couldn't make it. You know, this is, as Robbie said, it's just an incredible hobby. There are so many things, so many different types of activities that we can do to enjoy the rose, but none of that matters if it's not with each and every one of you. It's the friendships that we make along the way. And in a strange way, this virtual meeting kind of thing can sometimes help that along the way as we've gotten to really get to know people across the country, and more importantly, help each other. Without each and every one of you, our local rose societies wouldn't be successful. We wouldn't have the districts and all the activities that go on there. And really the American Rose Society would be a fragment of what it is today. So I want to thank you all very, very much for that. There's still time if you haven't donated to the annual fund to receive that Rose Atlas. We have a few of those left, I believe. Incredible donation this year, earlier this year, by the Beverly Hills Rose Society. Another way that a Rose Society has worked with, obviously, the American Rose Society to create something very special. So next steps as we wrap up here, you are going to receive an email which will include a survey about this meeting. Please fill it out. Please give us your feedback. This program has been recorded and we will make it available within the next week or so. We will also be in touch with those that are interested in participating in ARS initiatives and committees. And I know we asked that question when we had you fill out the registration form. I'm really pleased to say that over 40 people said, yes, I want to help. And that's just fantastic. And hopefully after hearing all the activities that are going on right now, some more of you will raise your hand and say, I'm kind of interested in that. You know, not only will you help the American Rose Society, but the American Rose Society can help you in hone in on some skills and learn some things that maybe you didn't have before. So that really is a win-win, and it can also help your local Rose Societies. So thank you very much for that. Have a wonderful evening. We're finishing right on time. Yay. Board members would be shocked. We've had some long meetings lately with the board, but thank you all very much and have a great evening. Thank you.